Welcome to the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about one of my favorites, Counting Crows, and their new record, Butter Miracle, The Complete Suites. They released that on May 9th. This is the band's 8th studio album and their follow-up to 2014's Somewhere Under Wonderland. However, this new record does find the band building off its most recent release, Butter Miracle Suite 1, which is an EP that the band dropped back in 2021. Counting Crows are an outfit that is very well known for its arduous touring habits. And after roughly 5 years of supporting Somewhere Under Wonderland, they finally decided to take a break in 2019, with Adam Duritz retreating to a farm in England that belongs to one of his friends. And that's where he began the writing process for this album. And I love the way that this project developed in its inception, with Duritz crafting 4 songs that play as a single suite, but I would say also hold up very well on their own. This is something that the band has never done before, and I think it's an exciting way to bring something fresh to their sound, a sound that I would say has been excellent for the most part. Like any ambitious band, they've had some missteps over the years, but I think any band could agree that after 30 years, their sound could benefit from just a tiny bit of an overhaul. So you have these 4 tracks, The Tall Grass, Elevator Boots, Angel of 14th Street, and Bobby and the Rat Kings, that all come together in very intriguing fashion, I would say, with what is a fresh take on that classic Crow sound. It's almost kind of like Counting Crows Go Prog, which I find enticing, and it really had me jonesing for this next EP and for others to follow, because Duritz stated that this would be his writing approach for the time being. So who knows how many suites he decides to put together. I think it's a really cool angle. He also told Rolling Stone that Butter Miracle Suite 2 would be released with Suite 1 to form a full album. But the band started touring again in the fall of 2021, and that in conjunction with rewrites led to the delay of Suite 2. But here we finally are. It's been almost 4 years, but we finally get this project, even with all the grueling touring that they have done in that time frame. You can check out the tour dates. They have just been working tirelessly as usual. And I think this project is great. I think it's worth the wait. I love the music, and I think the production is really solid as well. You have that signature raw poetic storytelling from Adam Duritz, which has been a staple of their music from the very beginning, and I think is one of the big things that draws fans in. And you also have that classic Crows sound that combines Americana and Heartland rock. Although I will say that the absence of that wonderful accordion-driven bayou element that they like to play with is absent from this record, and it does disappoint me a little bit. What's not disappointing, though, is that in its place, you have the presence of big guitars, which are exceptional. Just a big serving of glam rock and punk rock, with Duritz citing Mott the Hoople and Mick Ronson as big influences. And I guess you could say by default, David Bowie. An interesting little side note, if you're not familiar with Mott the Hoople, David Bowie actually persuaded them to stay together and offered them Suffragette City, which, as we all know, later appeared on Ziggy Stardust. It's crazy to think that that song could have been something completely different, but Mott the Hoople turned it down. And then Bowie also penned All the Young Dudes, which they accepted, and it became the band's biggest hit, and they went on to perform for a handful of years afterwards, and doing some reunions as well over the years. I love that Adam also cites Gang of Youths as an influence. He was featured on a couple of tracks on Angel in Real Time, their 2022 record, one of my favorites from that year. And so I love that they're helping to drive his writing process. But I do have some hangups about this thing, and it's what has taken this thing so long, because I wanted to take a few days to think about it. But the construction of this record and the fact that Suite 1 features a B-side containing the once suppositional August and Everything After. The writing of that song started during the sessions of their debut, as we all know, but Duritz has been quoted as saying that he liked the title more than the actual song. And the rest is history. But after 25 years, the band, they played it live a couple of times before that, and then they finally decided to revisit it with help from the London Studio Orchestra. And then it was released on January 24th 2019 as an Amazon original and then as the B-side on Sweet One. I would have loved to have had the option of just being able to buy Sweet 2 as well, with the exciting prospect of unreleased B-sides. I also think that on Sweet 1, they could have utilized more of that wax to put out some other stuff. I know that their catalog runs deep with unreleased material, and it would have been really cool with these projects to take advantage of that. I feel frustrated in knowing that if I want to access Sweet 2 after already buying Sweet 1, that I'm already getting a bunch of songs that I've already purchased. And I know it's been a long time and that perceptions change, but the thing that I find funny about this is that when the band was getting ready to release 1999's This Desert Life, they had hangups about the availability of Colorblind, which was featured on the film Cruel Intentions from that year, as well as Baby I'm a Big Star Now, which was featured on the 98 film Rounders. They also had a hard time placing Baby I'm a Big Star Now in this track sequence, and so ultimately they just decided to leave it off the album. But you have the same problem here. Like, I have a hard time wanting to spend the money to buy a record where I already own half the songs. It doesn't feel like there's any incentive to really go after the wax on this thing, because that's what we're talking about on this channel. We're talking about vinyl packages, and I think that the approach that they take here is rather disappointing, and I hope Sweet 2 does become available on its own down the road. I got to admit, too, that I feel like Duritz's lyrics in some ways are played out a little bit. Like, you can only reference California and Angels and Lights so many times before they lose their effectiveness. Again, I think his storytelling has always been exceptional, but it does feel to a degree like over time that he's just stuck in this rut, and it would be nice to see him extend beyond that from a lyrical standpoint. This thing kicks off with Love from A to Z. Your opening track has this excellent blues guitar with heavy tone to open. A big drum roll is going to follow shortly after, and then it's finished with this slide that takes us into this brief moment of shredding to open this thing. I love the way that the vocals hit with intensity as the music abates. The rhythm is prominent while the guitar and piano swim around each other nicely in the verses. It's got this great dimly lit barroom feel that is so quintessentially them. The guitars are going to have more strength in the chorus, with Duritz's vocals finding really nice balance in their melody. I really like the contrast on this song. And I love that the guitar, the lead guitar, I should say, acts as a bridge coming off the chorus into new verses. That third verse has a great build leading into the final chorus with I think it's all too brief. I wish the solo would have gone a little longer, but finishes nicely into the coda. Your second track is entitled Spaceman in Tulsa. Got these unique lo-fi drums that open for a moment before being usurped by this bright, crisp rock and roll with catchy do-do-do-do-do vocals. It's got a lot going on. Soul, alternative country, and pop being a big influence on this song. It's something that this band has not been afraid of doing over the years. The verse opens with minimal piano, drums, and vocal, and then you get a bit of bass that works in to establish this heartland rock feel. And honestly, this thing just screams Springsteen. The chorus is going to adopt the melodies of the intro, which I like that back and forth there. And then the second verse is going to have more of that minimal quality, but I feel like there's more instrumentation working in and out of it. Second chorus is followed by a moment of feedback that seems like it's going to create this big shift, but it's brief and it backs off to lead into the third verse. It's a cool moment that they pull off very well. And this song it's exceptional. There's a lot of people talking about this track for a reason. Your third song is entitled Boxcars. I love the muted hi-hat to open with a brief vocal element and then a mean lick to get going. This thing is hard, blues-driven rock and roll that is right in line with their classic rock forebears. And I also think with tracks that they've put out, songs like Angels of the Silences and Have You Seen Me Lately. This composition is going to develop great texture with piano and other layers of guitars that just find this solid, catchy groove as this thing goes on. Solo is going to take off around the minute and 45-second mark, leading into a brief, mellow mid-8. And then the song is going to quickly transition and commence a build back into that big hard rockin' feel to finish. This song is pretty one of a kind. They don't venture into this territory very often, I feel. Your fourth track is entitled Virginia Through the Rain was waiting for this moment too. You get this somber piano that ushers in a vocal that kickstarts this moody, pensive track with light melodies. Mid-tempo percussion gives the track great movement amongst these guitars and piano elements that I don't want to call them sluggish in a negative connotation, but they work kind of slowly. You get this droning organ element that works perfectly for this track, adding a bit of soul and sadness to it. And I love the way that this thing takes off around the 2-minute mark. It's almost as if all of the frustration and sorrow that is like just building up in Adam just bursts out. And then it backs off to this simple piano and vocal. And it's almost kind of like this moment of regret in the aftermath of that explosion. It's great song structure. And then this song is going to find its footing a few bars later to finish. Your 5th track is entitled Under the Aurora. Drum roll opens this jaunty piano-driven track, reversing the energy of Virginia Through the Rain. You got this rhythm that's going to carry a mid-tempo and buoyant groove, kind of like the wake coming off a boat and just hitting the shore. The organ on this thing brightens things up with some electric guitar. It's going to add some heavy contrast as well, just round this thing out. There's a lot working here. The second verse works back into the territory with a few layers to build them back, and then leading into the chorus. You get a bit of a shift with the drum-driven bridge at about the 3-minute mark on the song, and then back to the third verse with that build again, and leading into a big coda that hits just right. I really like the way that at the end of the song, the strings evince themselves brilliantly, and the track begins this descent for about 30 seconds as it finishes off. And then on to the second half here. We get into Suite 1 tracks. The Tall Grass is your 6th song. It's got this soft electronic percussion and what sounds like an auto harp that go to work. You got these other fluttering synth elements that work in and out of the track. It feels a bit outside of their comfort zone, which is absolutely why I freaking love this song. Again, there's these minor nuances where they really are doing different things on this album. Textures continue to build with organ and other guitar feedback. And it's kind of has this like 90s grunge balladry feel to it with like a bit of Smashing Pumpkins sprinkled into it. The drums begin to build towards a more conventional, I would say, Counting Crows style feel with guitars and shimmering piano that work in. It rocks out nicely to build to the coda. And then I really enjoyed the bits of tremolo guitar and the way that this thing just finishes gently with this twinkly piano and acoustic rhythm that's going to take us right into your 7th song, Elevator Boots. Big staccato piano to open this thing up, and you get just a minor shift in that acoustic rhythm that opens this thing up, coming off of the Tall Grass. Captures that well-known alternative Americana feel that these guys have been crushing for decades. Some nice, but it's familiar territory, but it feels nice too. Soulful organ, electric rhythm, and rollicking bass boost the chorus to beautifully frame Duritz's soaring vocal on this track. And they're also backed by these subtle harmonies that I think are very effective as well. That thick bass tone in the second verse is stellar. I think it's a highlight on this track. You get this brief middle 8 that drifts into slightly different melodic territory before turning back to the verse structure and closing with the chorus and a quick refrain. And that's going to lead to this boisterously, this big boisterous crash that goes right into your 8th track, Angel of 14th Street. It's going to lead in with driving percussion, acoustic rhythm, and some peculiar sounding synth elements as well. The verse is driven by the rhythm section, and I think that this allows Duritz to really take center stage as the guitars and synths dip in and out of this track. I love the brief stop and then the shift in tempo for the chorus. I think that's a great moment in this composition. And for me, it hits just right when the thought of the song, it feels like it's starting to kind of just run into banal territory, but it just hits right at the right time. Around 2:30, this thing is going to go electric, and it's just what this track needs. The third verse is going to work into the final chorus with a refrain that leads into a nice guitar solo to finish on this track, and then it leads into your final number, your 9th song, Bobby and the Rat Kings, which is going to open with crashing guitars and piano, and honestly, what is a bit of punk flair. I really like that in this song. The verse is much more mellow melodically though, but it maintains a feel that it feels equal parts Joe Strummer and Bruce Springsteen. I love this song. Drifts into a twinkly piano driven jungle land like section after about the 2 minute mark, which I think is exceptional. You know, starts real strong Strummer and then really shifts into that Springsteen feel. And then it slows down to what it almost feels like this improvised storytelling moment. And then picks itself up perfectly just in time. Just really fun movement in this composition from the start. And then it finishes just really nice. I think the finish of the song is great. Using it as the back end of this project is a great way to finish it. And despite all my hangups, I am going to give this thing a 7.8 out of 10. Some of you might rate it a little higher. I want to rate it a little higher, but I still feel like the layout of the tracks, I feel like Suite 1 should have been first. I think that letting people hold off and getting Suite 2 in the back end, just building that anticipation off of Suite 1, personally, I think would have been a better way to approach this project. I do think ultimately not having access to Suite 2 on its own, and I could have missed something too. If I'm incorrect about that, please let me know in the comments section, because I would love to just have that separate project already owning Suite 1. But I think that like letting that anticipation build off of Suite 1 into the new material on Suite 2 would have been a better way to do this thing. And I think that taking the opportunity to utilize the EP format to do something exciting on the B-side of a full album, which, you know, contains about roughly minutes worth of physical space, 40 minutes of physical space that you can throw down there. It would have just been really cool to see Counting Crows put a little more thought into it. And that's going to keep me from giving it a higher rating. Otherwise, I think that this is a band that, even after all this time, this is worth the wait. This is an album that really captures all the good parts of their sound, all the great things that they've done over the years, while still venturing into some pretty fun melodic territory. And I will say that I hope in the future that Adam Duritz does find a way to, it almost kind of feels like Steinbeck syndrome is what I would call it. And Steinbeck's a guy that I would say later on in his career started to venture out of the land of California, started to venture out of what he was really familiar with and started getting into some other things. And it'd be great to see Duritz take that jump and be a little brave and be a little more adventurous with his storytelling and his songwriting. But I hope you enjoyed this record. I hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.